From the halls of Congress to under the dome, we're exposing the deals, the drama, and the dirt that the mainstream media won't touch. Who's fighting for your freedom? Who's selling out to the woke mob? And who's about to get roasted? No fluff, no filters, and absolutely no time for spineless politics. Just bold Republican commentary, sharp analysis, and enough sass to make the left squirm. So grab your sweet tea or something stronger, and let's dive into the hottest headlines and juiciest scandals rocking the Tar Heel state. This is NC Political Tea, where the truth always gets served.
In an attempt to extort American taxpayers for hundreds of billions of dollars for illegal aliens and people that came into our country illegally, from gangs, from prisons, from mental institutions. They wanted to pay them $1.5 trillion, which would have really hurt our healthcare businesses and our recipients at levels never seen before. Today, we're sending a clear message that we will never give in to extortion, because that's what it was. They tried to extort. The Democrats tried to extort our country. In just a moment, I'll sign a bill exactly like we asked Democrats to send us all along, many days ago. This cost the country $1.5 trillion, this little excursion.
And they got nothing for it. Hello. And
well, they did get something for it. They got a bunch of people pissed off and they made drama for themselves. Hey, how are you?
I'm great. I'm great. The day after the shutdown, it's been a little bit. It's been a minute that we've been on. So I'm glad to see you again, my friend.
Likewise. Lots going on in the world. I think they said that was the longest shutdown in history. 43
days, all, instituted by the Democrats, 8 sensible Democrats who cared about their constituents, actually.
Do you really think Don Davis cares about his constituents, or does he care about the vote?
I'm sure he cares about the vote. I'm not taking anything away from that. Well, I mean, okay, yeah. Was it a political move? I mean, look, when you're doing this stuff, SNAP benefits are running out. That's a real thing. The holidays are coming. The last thing you want to do is screw up holiday travel, which this is already done.
And I think holiday travel was bigger than people realize. This is the biggest traveling day of the year.
I've never seen anything like it. I mean, Trump really, this is the art of the deal. This is a supreme negotiator, because he just he was not going to budge, period, point blank. He basically said, look, I'm not having anything to do with it. But my instructions to my leadership, who did the right thing, Mike Johnson, he lawfully had these votes, right? He had the votes, scheduled the votes, etc. So they voted several times to do this.
Well, he didn't back down. And it's good to see the coalition, at least in Washington, stick together, because I got to tell you, in social media, they're not.
Oh, social hell's breaking loose. If you've been watching my X feed, I've been keeping you guys up to it. But this is what Newsom said. Newsom. He said, pathetic. This isn't a deal. It's a surrender. Don't bend the knee. But he's been complaining the loudest about the lack of SNAP benefits and all of the sky is falling stuff.
Well, he probably benefits the most of all of I would say New York and California probably have the biggest recipient benefactors. So, I mean, for him to say that, what a hypocrite.
Well, he's not in DC. He's hoping to get to DC, but with an attitude like that, an attitude like no matter what, no matter how much people are suffering, and no matter the political cost, we're just going to keep going. That doesn't belong in the White House. I think he's going to have a very hard time with that type of posturing.
Oh, listen, he's down in the Amazon at a climate summit that they had to build a runway for. He's just such a hypocrite.
We all remember the French laundry in Brooklyn, where he was at a $300 per person. That's
during COVID.
California, right? During COVID, when everything was supposed to be locked down, with a group of 30 people, just
partying his ass off.
Mm-hmm. But the cost of this shutdown has been very real. I thought Fox News did a great job of breaking it down.
Look at what the first round of that Democratic fight looked like. Nearly 42 million Americans lost their SNAP food assistance benefits. They were suffering. More than 5.2 million airline passengers faced flight delays and cancellations. 1.4 million federal workers went weeks without pay. And the White House estimates the economy lost about $15 billion every week of those 6 weeks.
Okay. And again, the Democrats got nothing for it.
But they kind of did in a way, Sloan, because they put Americans in the hole, and Americans are not all Americans have the forethought to realize this wasn't a Trump problem. Do you know what I mean? So they cost some perspective, image, because this did affect a lot of people that are on the poorest end of the spectrum who really stood up for Trump when he needed voters.
Well, you know, I also thought that perhaps in Virginia during the election, that might have cost us a lot of votes. Now that you mention it with politically, the political ramifications, because again, you know, most government workers in the DC area are in Virginia.
Yeah, well, it didn't. You're right. I think it bled over into the election. We just call it the hate mob up there, full of TDS. And they really got to say what they wanted. But what's really interesting about that, just kind of thinking out loud, they had more accusations about trannies in their bathrooms, things going on up there, abortions being done without permission or even notification. And yet they were like, screw this, we're done. And that really blew my mind.
Well, the cultural arguments aren't working anymore.
No,
so we as a party have to realize that these, even though we're going to talk about DEI tonight, we're really going to dig into it. We're going to dig on the economic costs. So I think when we're talking to prospective voters and our neighbors, et cetera, they might be done. They might think, okay, now that Trump's in office, that's not as much of a concern, right? It's not as much of a threat. We need to switch to the economic argument. There's a strong economic argument, which we'll talk about tonight, for why DEI doesn't work and is very inappropriate for many reasons. But I think voters need to hear the economic argument in addition to the social argument.
Well, and I agree with you. I mean, we know that the big things that are hurting people right now are the economy, especially, I don't know if you know this or if you've seen it, you know, just in the last 2 weeks, Amazon's laying off 14,000 people, UPS laying off 46,000 people, Verizon announced that they're laying off 15,000 people. Those are pretty big industries to be losing, you know, people in the workforce right around the Thanksgiving holiday.
Right. But modernization, okay, AI, modernization, et cetera, we are going to see this type of shedding. It's going to be industry specific, but we have to gird our loins, right? We have to be able to talk about this and be able to talk about what's next and be able to plan for what's next. Education, which we've worked on for the last 5 years, you and I, that has been a big component and a big push for us. But I really do want to talk about, speaking of things right around the corner, that the healthcare component of this whole thing. So here's what we the Republicans were fighting for. And it's significant. This is a huge problem. So Democrats, as we just talked about, they're refusing any deal. They were very unreasonable unless it included an extension of Obamacare subsidies. But these subsidies, they didn't even expire until the end of the year. So it's kind of like a forced emergency. And there's really absolutely no reason to cram down a long-term multi-billion-dollar taxpayer commitment in this last minute fundraising thing. Democrats, they were trying to rewrite like the entire healthcare policy writ large, using the shutdown as leverage, but it failed. All right. So first of all, these subsidies, they're going to dramatically expand the federal government's reach into healthcare already. All right. And they were really created as this temporary COVID era measure. Democrats just wanted to extend this out, and they were trying to extort Republicans to lock in billions for illegal alien healthcare. So this is not only affordability, this is supply, which has to do with affordability, but it really, we've seen in North Carolina, it cramps down supply and raises prices. But second, the Democrats were trying to just put a poison pill into this must pass bill. So if we start a precedent for that, and we allow, like, we don't negotiate with terrorists, right? So if we give in now, this is going to happen, you know, cycle after cycle. But check this out. I did a little research today. These COVID era subsidies, they're not only benefiting low income people, which we can kind of understand, right? People that make $100,000 and $150,000 are getting the rest of us to foot the bill for their subsidies. What do you think?
I think well, first of all, I think that Obamacare is the first big dive into socialized medicine and manipulating, controlling, the marketplace, which they've done. And now we're going to be, what I really think is going to happen is the Republicans are going to have their back against the wall. They have to come up with a decent healthcare alternative to what we've had, because they just nuked it. And we know what I just said about people losing their jobs. Where are they going to go? They're going to have to go on COBRA. They're going to have to go on, Medicare, Medicaid.
Yeah.
All three of those. So now we've got to find or understand what is the plan, what's going to happen in the future, because now that we're in this zone and we only have 90 days, we're only funded for 90 more days. What's the plan? Because you're really running toward the cliff.
Yeah, you really are. Here in North Carolina, here's how it will impact us. As of February of this year, about 88,000 North Carolinians enrolled in the ACA, these marketplace exchanges. 96% of them received these premium tax credits. So, and they will expire. So let me tell you on the other side what that means, what we're up against. So let's say a family of 4 is on this plan, and right now they're paying $350 a month, right? And the family, I'm just bringing this out there, makes $100K. That can double. Now they're really So the folks that are really impacted by this are the folks that are about Medicare eligible. So they're in their 60s, not quite eligible. And I'm hearing that they are the ones that can have their rates tripled because of the risk pooling. And
well,
yeah.
I think also there's going to have to be some pressure put on insurance companies in and of themselves. They're going to have to be able to give more affordable insurance. Let's be honest. A kid in his 20s really doesn't need much. Why aren't they offered catastrophic care if that's all they want? If that's all they want.
Mandated. Yeah, it's mandated that they have to provide certain things. And now here we are. This all began in the early 80s with the forcing or the introduction of catastrophic care. So that was the government's first foray into this market. And now we have insurance companies are forced to pay for mammograms for men and for,
crazy care.
Yeah, for prostate exams for women. And I'm only half kidding.
No, you're telling the truth. I mean, we know that they're paying for sex changes, or they were.
Well, I mean, yeah, but to your point, if that's on the menu that has to be offered for Medicaid, it increases the cost. And so once you get government involved and you set the cost, it's hard to ratchet down. You can always ratchet up. And this has been ratcheted up to the point of complete insanity.
I agree. Listen, I do feel like that some corporations got heads up this was coming, because I've heard from more than one company, HR group that is in the Fortune 500, that they held their premiums. They didn't raise their premiums for their workers going into next year, because this is about the time that they do open enrollment. Yeah. So I think there was a little bit of a heads up. And I think, there's a lot of good actuaries out there that probably advise, like, hold tight on, your benefits. Don't take the payments up on the premiums up on your employees, because I've heard it over and over. But I think that was necessary to get through what we're going to go through.
Yeah. I mean, to be clear, nobody in the industry, this isn't a shock, right? I think what the shock was, and I think we taught the Democrats an important lesson. This is a critical lesson, is that you're not going to take advantage of taxpayers, right, by holding us hostage, which brings me to my next story, as to a very special story about DEI. We just talked about perhaps the perception of a lack of salience now in elections, where we used to be able to say before Trump was elected, oh my God, there's going to be men in women's locker rooms. It's not going to be safe. Right. And, when we look at DEI, I think we've taken our foot off the gas, because it's been like, okay, well, we're not in danger of that happening. But the amount of money
Oh, it's
And
an
we're talking
industry.
about the taxpayer spending. So our friends at Accuracy and Media went to Raleigh recently and found that Raleigh government is misbehaving on things. And I'm just going to put this up and let you guys watch it.
So imagine being a taxpayer in Raleigh, North Carolina. You'd think that your taxes locally are going for law enforcement, schools, roads, maybe ambulance services. Instead, you find that they're being used to fund radical DEI principles in several facets of their city government. And yet, even though they're so proud of their radical DEI ideas, they have to hide them. I guess because they know the taxpayers don't want it, and I guess because they know there are federal executive orders prohibiting their work.
I am Brianna. I don't know how much skin this is beautiful. Oh my.
And I'm not going to show you the rest of it, but because it was absurd and it was excellent journalism by Adam Guillette and his team over at Accuracy Media. How are you, sir?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
It's good to have you here. We love that you've taken over in North Carolina and done your thing here. Expose the real. I mean, honestly, it's really kind of interesting to me. They talk a good game, and then you show the truth.
Well, it's unbelievable because, as you've seen, we already investigated a half dozen universities in the state of North Carolina doing DEI in defiance of state law. This week, we released another one, North Carolina A&T. And I noticed in all of the comments in every video, people said, I thought DEI was banned. I thought it was gone. I thought they weren't doing that anymore. So for the heck of it, we had our investigators just go to city governments. And in every single city government we went to, they were more than happy to brag to us about the DEI that they're doing. It drives up your taxes. It drives up everything. It's insane.
Look at this. Just from Raleigh, get this, $2.6 million for 19 employees. Now, that's not for extra donuts for meetings, etc. That's, where the hell is that? By the way, I live in Raleigh. So this really makes me mad, Adam.
I'm so sorry to hear that. If it makes it feel any better, Fort Worth ISD has a dozen full-time non-classroom equity staffers. I didn't find quite that many in Raleigh. Then again, I didn't do quite as much digging, but the amount of DEI nonsense, you brought up the point about people suffering financially. Well, in the past, I think it's decade, universities have hired 20 administrators for every one faculty member. And these administrative positions are largely DEI, LGBTQ positions. They're essentially activist positions. They're turning higher education into an activist organization with a med school on the side.
Yeah. And it's bad enough to, like, we have a great state auditor. And recently I've been perusing through different universities. Like, what's the head count versus what they're paying in tuition versus how much does it cost? It's really bad when you can start to see like 11,000 students and they've got 15 people on staff doing this kind of thing, but they hide it. They don't call it that.
That's exactly right. You know, I think if anybody wants a get-rich-quick scheme, get in a business card company because the job titles change like the clocks and the hour and everything. Some of these people we found changed their job titles twice in a year since the DEI ban in higher education. First, they become belonging, then they become something else, and they just print new business cards, change their job title, get a new sign in their office, and do the exact same work.
Wow. So recently, you guys really want to work on UNCC. That was, in my opinion, one of your crown jewels that you did here, and it really forced a chain of events. In fact, I know Speaker Hall, he talked to me after this. He pulled me aside at an event. And he goes, I am looking for more instances like UNC Charlotte, Sloan. Can you help me? Will you help me? This is a statement he made. Then I think that the person involved was fired. At first, you know, they come out, these universities, they cover their rear ends, right? But it's a drip, drip, drip. I mean, you will show one thing and then they will deny it and you'll come out with something else, which is the brilliance of it. So the good news here in North Carolina is that we've got good leadership in the General Assembly that will oversee this, as Margot said, a great auditor. But in other states that you go to, are you having the same response from the legislators?
Well, I have to say, all in all, I think North Carolina is the worst that I've seen. And part of it is because North Carolina, like many other states that banned DEI, passed a bill with zero teeth to it. Only Kansas has a law with a reporting mechanism and with actual legal consequences for lawbreakers. Thus, the law you have in the books in North Carolina is worse than worthless because it accomplishes nothing but provides a false sense of security. Go back to those legislators, tell them in next year's session, pass a Kansas-style law that actually has consequences for lawbreakers, which I know is a crazy suggestion. But yes, these bad people do get fired, but they get replaced by somebody just as bad, smart enough to keep their mouth shut. The solution is an actual strong law.
Yeah, and honestly, that's one of the focuses we're working on is, legislation that has teeth in it. We realize our legislators are not exactly strong-minded when it comes to, building laws. We see this most recently in healthcare, but we've also seen it in men and women's sports. That's also been an area. And I know that you went to Western Carolina University, and that was an interesting little jaunt, wasn't it?
Yeah, Western Carolina was a fun one to go and visit. I think my favorite perhaps was UNC Asheville, where the dean of students lost her job after appearing in our video. And again, it's so funny to me because they fire these people and they say, well, that's just one bad apple. Well, then what does that say about the leadership? Either you're idiots or you're in on it. If you're so inept in hiring that you bring in lawbreakers, you're a bozo, or more likely you hired them because they were going to do that sort of thing.
Well, I mean, how ironic is that you seem to just happen upon the one bad apple they have in the organization? I mean, that seems unlikely.
But what are the odds?
But I'm sure you knew going in that school specifically, UNCA, is known for radicalism, right? You did know that.
Not a clue. We go to all the universities. I got news for you. They're all known for, they're all engaging in radicalism. Some are just better known for it than others. But at this point, in our K through 12 investigations, I've been personally undercover in over 250 school districts across the country in red states. Our investigators have been in probably nearly 100 universities in red states. And they're all pretty much the same. It's rare that we go to a university or a school district and come back and say, I think they're doing the right thing. The more common thing is that the gatekeeper blocks us from talking to those bad apples. But I go to very few places where I leave and say, well, they're actually following the law there. That just doesn't really happen.
That's crazy.
Well, we need to start on oversight. Look, our legislative body loves to make laws. Personally, I'm a fan of this credo. If it doesn't extend the liberty of the citizen, you don't make the law, but no one listens to me. But anyway, oversight is an overlooked function of our state government. And we're going to put a little fire on their rear ends to try to get the oversight done, which you're kicking this off for us and showing us where to look, telling them where to look.
Yeah, you're right. And, as we mentioned and referred to kind of with the boys and girls sports thing, we've released videos from district after district. Most recently, we've released our 7th video from the state of Ohio today, another red state where it's illegal for boys to play in girls sports or to use the girls' locker room. Once again, they coach our prospective parent on how to get their boy into girls sports. And I got to tell you, we go so far posing as parents as to say, oh, yes, our trans daughter is such a tenacious athlete. She actually injured one of the other girls previously. And they say, no problem. If she injures another girl, I got your back. That's the commitment they have to your children and to you as a taxpayer in these districts. These folks are radicals. They're evangelicals for their beliefs. And that's the danger of it. They're not one-dimensional villains. They think they're doing God's work if they believed in God.
Well, I mean, you're talking to the two people here that broke the story on Peyton McNabb. She's a volleyball player that was severely injured. And I was the one that broke it. And when you're writing about that story, and I think this was 3 or 4 years ago, for me, I was actually the second person in America who broke the story of a high school athlete who was soon to be a boy. And that was tough because unless you have a trouser check, right, you never know. But the point is the story blew up. And so you're talking about a school where you go in and you omit any doubt. You're actually directly telling them. That's and that's right. A whole different ball game if we're puns. Yeah.
Yeah, we leave no question about it. We tell them we have an updated birth certificate. Now she's got a female birth certificate. Is it going to be a problem at all? And rare is the place that says, I'm so sorry, the law doesn't allow that. Get the heck out of my office, you law-breaking wacko. Instead, they just want to coach us. They just want to help us. And that's the terrifying thing. No one wants to believe that they wake up in the morning and send their child off to a radicalized school district. They've met with the administrators. They've met with the teachers. They've met with the principals. Well, I meet with those same people, only I do it with hidden cameras. And they brag to me about how they lie to you.
I hate that. I hate that we're going through this. I've watched Peyton personally. She's a very good friend of mine. I've watched her and what she had to go through at Western Carolina after that. She ended up in a Title IX case there. They're still not treating her well. So we know that it still exists there. And what you brought out there was a really big deal to us. And I really want to thank you for that. And we've also exposed some more things there now, haven't we, Sloan?
Yeah, apparently there's a tampon dispenser at Western North Carolina inside of the male bathroom. And our state treasurer found out when he visited the men's room. That's weird.
If it makes you feel any better, one trick we learned in the state of Ohio banned, allowing boys and girls restrooms and girls and boys restrooms and so forth. So to get around that, many of the school districts just made one joint restroom, and they would put a boys entrance and a girls entrance. And if a parent walked by, they're none the wiser. Oh, good, you've got separate boys and girls restrooms. But both entrances would lead to the exact same restroom.
Wow.
These are the people we're dealing with. They're one step ahead of the parents every way.
That's really conniving.
Yeah, it is. And again, all with taxpayer money. So, we're into politics here, and we have a lot of politicians who listen and a lot of prospective politicians. So if in your district, you're running in a metropolitan area and the issue isn't salient anymore, that you've got these, and I don't know why it wouldn't be. The economic case is astronomical. I mean, to keep perpetuating these programs, in addition to being unlawful. But the last thing that I want to mention to you is I want to seriously thank you for your extreme diligence in pointing out dangerous anti-Semites who are allowed to go and terrorize. And Adam, I'm telling you, I cover this all the time here in North Carolina. I have professors who write me from UNC and other places. And the first line is, I don't like your politics, but thank you for protecting us from these radicals. In other words, hardcore leftist professors, be they Jews or Christians or whatever, the people you're exposing, they're not only anti-Semitic dirtbags, they're terrorizing pretty much everyone.
Well, you're talking to somebody who was swatted 13 times in roughly a 12-month period.
Oh, wow.
13, a swatter's dozen, I think they call it. I got death threats nearly every day, multiple for a year. My wife was getting them as well, because we are tenacious at holding these radicals accountable. When the university won't, we will. When they get arrested for engaging in violence, but the Soros prosecutor drops the charges, we put a frown on their face. So for those who don't know, in addition to sending our mobile billboards to their campus with their name and picture listed as, Harvard or Columbia's leading anti-Semite, we also buy their domain names like lenachan.com or amaributler.com. In fact, we own the world's largest portfolio of domain names. We have over 2,300 of them. And then we do SEO work. So if you Google them before a job interview or a date, our domain comes up first, explaining what they've done. And then what a lot of people don't know, and this is one of my favorites, we do geo-targeted ads. So anybody who's been on your campus sees the domain names we built for you. And we do social media ads targeting your LinkedIn and Facebook contacts. So when you show up for Thanksgiving dinner, your great aunt says to mom and dad, did you know what your kid did last semester? And As I said, I don't understand why they want me dead. But I do understand that we do get a lot of apologies from some people who, after this happens, they wise it up a little bit.
Well, at least, okay, so I don't feel bad because I've had fewer death threats than you. And so actually you're making me feel a little bit better.
Normal. I'm just kidding.
I mean, but I love that. I love the work. It's all about accountability. We love free speech here. Social consequences are the baggage of free speech and the price of free speech. And so most people don't realize that on both sides, quite frankly, which we've been calling out. And so I applaud you for bringing the social consequences. Look, these do it for publicity. Adam, quite frankly, they should thank you for giving them publicity for their words. They're trying to get attention.
That's what I always say. We're not trying to censor them. I like that racists can have free speech because then we get to know who the racists are. We're merely amplifying their message to the widest audience possible. For those who apologize, we take down their domain names. And to your point, for those who aren't sorry, they should send us a thank you letter for amplifying their message. That said, I get very few thank you letters.
Well, what's the publicity stunt without publicity?
Yeah,
That's right.
That's right.
I would like to know, where can our viewers find you and support you?
You're very kind. Our website is aim.org, AIM.org. We're active on every social media platform, even TikTok. We just released another hidden camera investigation from a school district in Ohio today and from North Carolina A&T yesterday. And we have a number of additional North Carolina universities coming, including some of those prior ones that we went back and revisited after people lost their jobs. And wouldn't you know it, we found more bad actors.
I'm not surprised.
Well,
We're gonna, you know, what we could do with you is we will have you come with us to the legislature.
Well, they may not like me because I make their laws look
They
worthless.
don't like me either.
Well, I was going to say, I'm getting off of this podcast and I'm calling Speaker Hall and I'm going to say, wow, you had me, and I don't normally get, believing them too quickly, but yeah, we've got some talking to do. So, well, thank you very much for coming on. Thank you very much for your work. I mean, you guys are doing the best undercover work out there, bar none. And thank you for it.
Well, you're so very kind, and thank you so much for having me.
Keep doing it, and go to aim.com or org.
Org.org, aim.org.
All right, and support Adam and his work.
Well, thank you, ladies, so very much.
Have a great night.
You too.
Thank you. So
Wow.
I am blown away. That charged me in so many ways. So we need, as usual, a bill with more teeth. We do see a lot in the legislature, and I'm going to be reviewing that bill. We're going to be reviewing it and looking into see how we can strengthen it.
We're going to go look at the Kansas bill, like he said, against our bill and do a comparison and take it to our legislators. That's what we're going to do.
Right. I mean, if you're going to do the bill, do it right. Speaking of DEI, you and I have spent a lot of time talking about, see, here's one of the things. Here's one of the things. UNC Charlotte, what happened there? We spent a lot of time talking about the aspect of DEI that pushes transgenderism, this gender garbage. You and I have been fighting for that. I know I started Ed First Alliance in 2020. No, in January 2021. So it's been 4.5 years. Okay. And we've always said when you're targeting children to change their gender, what you're doing is you're victimizing them. You're preying upon them.
Absolutely. That's a mental disorder.
And child trafficking. We've obviously spoken out about that. So I have to sound off on someone who is big in this movement, who has championed the same things we have, preying on children, this queer ideology.
Yeah.
And it's Megyn Kelly. Today she said something what I thought was, and I want to see what you think, pretty bad about child trafficking and the abuse of children. So let's put it up.
Virtually everything. Not everything, but virtually everything. And this person has told me from...
Okay, hang on. Let me go back to the very beginning because I think this adds color to it. Okay.
I've said this before, but just as a reminder, I do know somebody very, very close to this case who is in a position to know virtually everything. Not everything, but virtually everything. And this person has told me from the start, years and years ago, that Jeffrey Epstein, in this person's view, was not a pedophile. This is this person's view, who was there for a lot of this, but that he was into the barely legal type.
Barely legal. There's nothing legal about this, but continue, Megyn.
Like he liked 15-year-old girls.
15-year-olds, not legal.
That's
but
alarming.
Continue.
and I realize this is disgusting. I'm definitely not trying to make an excuse for this. I'm just giving you facts. That he wasn't into like 8-year-olds, but he liked the very young teen types that could pass for even younger than they were, but would look legal to a passerby. And that is what I believed, and that was what I reliably was told for many years. And it wasn't until we heard from Pam Bondi that they had tens of thousands of videos of alleged, forgive me, they used to call it kiddie porn, now they call it child sexual abuse material, on his computer, that for the first time I thought, oh no, he was an actual pedophile. I mean, only a pedophile gets off on young children abuse videos. She's never clarified it. I don't know whether it's true. I have to be honest. I don't really trust Pam Bondi's word on the Epstein matters anymore. Yeah, so I don't know what's true about him. We have yet to see anybody come forward and say, I was I was under 10. I was under
Like that makes a damn difference, but continue.
14 when I first came within his.
She said
That's not true.
10
though.
or 14. She said
Yeah, I was gonna
10 or
say,
14.
but that's-
So she goes 1 year under. But wait, it's
Purview. You can say that's a distinction without a difference.
No, it's not.
I think there is a difference.
Yeah.
There's a difference between a 15-year-old and a 5-year-old. You know, it's just whatever.
Okay. When Megan was talking, we were all talking about children being groomed. We've never made a distinction between a 10
A 5-year-old or a 15-year-old.
So this is disgusting and pathetic.
Yeah, I 100%
It
agree.
is. And by the way, let's go back to what Megyn Kelly used to do. She left Fox News because, I don't know, somebody made a pass at her. And she's a damn grown-ass woman, right? And then when she went to NBC, she had nonstop interviews with these alleged victims of Trump's sexual harassment. So
But now she loves him.
what?
Weird.
I find this disgusting. So it goes from, I've been offended. There's a whole movie made about it. I've been offended. Somebody made a pass at me at Fox News. I left, interviewing all these victims. Victims count. And all of a sudden, well, at least they weren't 8. They were 15.
Listen, first of all, I don't know where I watched this, but it had to be like 10 years ago when this first started, Epstein first started. There were girls as young as 10 and 11 in Florida. I'm not buying anything she just said, because that's BS when you see what the Florida police were saying in that documentary. And the girls were in it.
That up.
There were actually girls in it. They were in middle school.
Here's the thing. What was her point? Because she said, I always heard it wasn't little children, but then when I learned that they were kiddie porn, then I learned he was a pedophile. Okay, why are you talking about this? Coincidentally, it's been revealed that Matt Gaetz today allegedly had sex with a 17-year-old that was homeless and paid her for it. And they're good friends. Could that be? I don't know. But because she's done so much work in our zone, tonight, Margot and I felt it would be remiss without registering our disgust for this.
Yeah, I'm 100% against any of that. Listen, to me, my kid isn't even an adult when she's 20 because she's not all there in the head. But that's just me. But honestly, if I were the mother of a child, whether she was 5, 10, 15, or 17, you're still off. It's off limits.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that pissed me off is Beata sat there with a Star of David that you can see from space.
I saw that.
To me, is for someone to say, wow, here's a Jew nodding in agreement that Epstein didn't so bad because the victims were 15. That, of course, I think that because people are punching down on Jews right now. So that's all we need.
I just think as a mother, that's the biggest issue to me. Any mother, Jewish mother, Christian mother. I don't care.
Any human that's not didn't even have children. And by the way, this is, I mean, I don't know why she had that discussion, but I do know this. Today, while I was looking at X, which is a damn sewer, I saw many Democrats getting their licks in on this. I didn't see anyone on our side.
Really?
So I think it's, I mean, people on our side are critical of Megyn Kelly. Maybe they didn't see it. To be fair, I think she said a lot of, okay, yeah, I mean, I picked right up on it because,
yeah, again,
Megyn Kelly has never made the distinction in underage victims of grooming.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
But underage victims of child sex trafficking, Megyn Kelly makes a distinction that, well, at least they weren't 10.
That's disgusting. Sloan, I can't even talk about it anymore because it's so bad. And it's such a terribly flawed logic.
I don't know what her game is. Yeah. But anyway, I felt like we really needed to go on record. And so the last thing is that Trump, promises made, promises kept. Today, it is official. Antifa is a terrorist group. Now, when I read this on X from Marco Rubio, the statement that the State Department put out, it threw me a little bit because it identified groups in Italy, groups in Germany, and I read some of Andy Ngo's post. If you don't know Andy NGO, check him out. He is the authoritative expert on this stuff. But I was a little confused. So let me tell you what this enables us to do here in the US. This FTO standard allows FBI, DHS, other groups to use counterterrorism tools like FISA warrants, bulk data collection, and undercover operations against supporters. That's good, right? Because now,
that's great.
Yeah, because now it's treated just, if they break a window, it's just trespassing, whatever. It also builds on the domestic designation, enabling more aggressive techniques. In other words, wiretaps, infiltrations against U.S. individuals or groups linked to these tactics or ideology with Antifa. And it could trigger big time investigations under material support for terrorism. Here's another thing, Margot. The ability to deport.
Oh, really?
Yes, if we've got students here, and I think this has happened quite a lot, who are involved in these Antifa riots, they can be bounced out of this country.
Well, that's great news. I think that's great news. I also think that, listen, I don't think people realize this, but there are some folks in the military that subscribe to Antifa. And guess what? Your day's numbered.
Oh, that's true. And teachers and all kinds of people.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, providing material support becomes a federal crime prosecutable by the DOJ. So that's no joke. It just heightens the risk for actions like property damage, like I said, and clashing with police. Well, maybe sometimes those are misdemeanors and they go in and out. When you're charged federally, your ass isn't going in and out of jail.
You're going to jail.
Yeah, you're not going in and bailed out.
Yeah.
Victims of Antifa violence, check this out, are able to sue for damages in U.S. courts. That's
good.
Huge.
Well, and I think another piece of it is we know there's a lot of teachers that are in Antifa, that we know it. But you know what? They're going to have to shut their mouth because now some kid's going to turn them in, or a parent, or another teacher.
Look at the guy, Dwayne Dixon. He is an avowed member of a virulently violent group that used guns that was in Charlottesville. And he was, I think he was thrown out of UNC for 2 days, came back in with much fanfare. I wonder now what can be done with him now that it's proven this is a terror group.
Well, I think you can't go backwards, but you definitely can go forwards.
Yeah, I do too. And I'm hoping for the best. Because look, when they do this with cops, this is actually, I mean, look at this. This is an organized military waging war against our cops in our streets. And we've not been able to do anything about it for the last 6 years.
Well, Portland, Seattle, all these radical zones, DC, the game is over. Or maybe it's just starting, whichever way you look at it.
Funding networks. We've talked about Z. Smith Reynolds here. Funding networks. Ford Foundation and Z. Smith Reynolds paid millions to the Antifa groups around here that tore all the statues down. So now when you're funding terrorism, that's called material support for terrorism.
Well, they won't be doing it anymore without us catching them.
And I'm loving it. And on that note, we're going to end this show, slide into our weekend, right?
Yes, we are going to
keep
slide
wide
into
open. Slide into the weekend.
And enjoy the first weekend with a summary judgment on file.
Woo woo! Lawfare is coming to end, and
Absolutely.
The next phase is beginning. And if you know, you know.
That's right.
So good night, everyone, and we'll see you Tuesday. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That's a wrap on today's NC Political Tea. We hope you're leaving sharper, spicier, and ready to take on the political craziness in the Tar Heel State. If you loved what you heard, or even if it made you mad, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this show with your friends, family, and that one coworker who just needs the truth. Follow us on social media to stay in the loop and get your daily dose of conservative fire. And remember, here in North Carolina, the grassroots grows stronger when we stand together. Until next time, keep the faith, keep up the fight, and don't let the left water down your tea. This is NC Political Tea, where we spill it like it is.